Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kristen.
So good to see you.
So good to see you. I feel like it's been a while.
It has been a very long while. And actually, in part of my reflection before we were jumping in together, I was thinking about um, that we've known each other for some years now, but like we haven't been connected formally for some time. And I just feel so grateful that you're still in my life
I know.
in this way.
It's funny. I feel like there was something about the people you formed relationships with in the early pandemic that I feel like
Mm,
really there. I have a number of them that are like still around, right? Because you were it was almost like you were trauma bonding of like, how are we going to get
yes.
through this? What are you seeing? What am I seeing? How are we going to like survive this absolute chaos show of a year, 2 years?
Mhm.
So it's a gift that we've stayed connected, and also I'm not surprised given the circumstances we
Yes.
met in.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think of that when I was putting my thoughts together for you. So quick introduction of Kate. So we met when our organizations that we were working for at the time, which were both focused on creating equitable workforce pathways. Our orgs were looking for alignment and kind of the work that we were doing and, potential partnerships and whatnot. And she is literally the person that you want working on these types of issues. She is like crazy smart, super, super passionate about creating an equitable workforce, an equitable world, I should say. And she's just like an absolute joy to work with. And so I feel like you don't always get that whole combo. And she's someone who I don't know how to say this, and I don't mean it in a patronizing way. I feel like I just can't wait to watch your journey unfold because to see the impact that you've already had and the impact that you will have is just really phenomenal. So, anybody who is interested in the types of topics that we're going to dig in on today, absolutely find her, follow her because she is an incredible voice in this space. So, just thank you so much for being here with me today.
Well, as you can probably imagine, I'm like feeling physically uncomfortable at that level of complimenting. But I will take it. I will take it. And yeah, it was a joy to get to know you through our like chaos work together.
Yeah. It's kind of the point, right? You know what? It's funny. When I started the show, I did not mean for it to be the point. It is the name of the show, right? Kind of a big deal, which is my tongue-in-cheek way of talking about the fact that we do tend to brush off our compliments and downplay our wins as women. But in getting to introduce these women that are in my life that I find so incredible, to get to reflect back to you how amazing I think you are is it's such a fun part of it. I'm like, we could be done now. All right, that's good. Cool. Done. Stop recording.
I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this to you, but as I was sort of like reflecting on spending this time with you, I was like, am I kind of a big deal? Like, like, do I identify with that as a label as part of who I am? And I had to like get over my imposter syndrome of accepting that like maybe I have something useful to say about careers and being a woman in the workplace and all of
Oh
that.
my gosh, you
Um,
have so much to say. In our little preamble, even before we started recording, you had so much to say. And you have such an articulate way, you have such a thoughtful way of expressing
mm,
your point of view. And I think that that is rare. A lot of times we can like verbal process or we need to like work things out. You have such an intentional way of sharing what you want to share. And I think that's a real gift because the spaces that you're in are complicated and nuanced and layered. And I think sometimes that can kind of push people away from those
mm.
places because they're not sure the language to be using, how they should be talking about it, right? So to have someone who can just speak about it in such a human way, that is the work, but it's not always the language that we use. So I think that's something that makes you so unique in this space. But for people to kind of understand a little bit about what I'm saying, maybe let's just start with the present day. So,
Sure.
what are you focused on now? What's the work that you're leading? Let's just start there.
Yeah, so I work for a big national workforce development organization that helps young adults 18 to 29 get into good jobs through partnerships with our corporate partners. Um, Most of our organization is focused on the direct service work of getting those young adults into careers. And I am focused on the sort of thinking about what's next for us as an organization, where do we want to go, whether that's new markets or new products or finding solutions to existing products. But I do a lot of thinking. That's my primary job these days is, I have a coworker who sort of tongue-in-cheek called me Kate GPT, which I think is pretty funny. But my skill set really lies in like, okay, I take in a bunch of information, qualitative data, quantitative data, talking to people, building relationships, and then I sort of spit out recommendations on how we should move forward. But I appreciate you saying it about the human way, because I think ultimately, like, one lesson I learned in my career, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, I have worked very closely with executive leaders, and at the end of the day, we're all just people, right? I've like watched people who are a really big deal, right? And I'm like, oh, I know how you take your coffee, and it's with way more sugar than I thought was possible, right? And so that sort of like guides my approach to work all the time. It's how do we get to the root of people, and how do we think about what's best for people, and how do we, in my case, like make sure that young adults get the opportunity that they deserve, which is everything. My young adults deserve everything. And I think that's sort of a through line through my career. I'm very mission focused and really focused on economic mobility. So it's a delight. It's a delight to get to work on these hard problems and figure out how to talk about them in a way that's going to make people understand and be persuasive. Because it doesn't matter how smart your thoughts are and how good your recommendations are if you can't explain them to a normal person.
Yes, it's like, how are you actually using real life language, which is hard to do, I think, especially as an academic or somebody that is, a thinker and is in books and data and all of the rest. Truly a skill to be able to translate that to someone who, right, like when I was in the workforce space, that was a new space for me. And so I really felt like I was taking just like a master's course on what I didn't know what a workforce board was, right? Like there's so many things and I'm like, what's that? It's really fascinating actually to start to get a peek under the hood of how these systems operate that are actually creating the systems that we live in. And you have no idea the forces that are behind that. And sometimes good, sometimes not. But I think to be able to, the people that I loved learning from were the ones who were able to share it in a way that it didn't feel like I needed to get my dictionary out every 5 seconds to understand like what they were talking about.
And I think sometimes like those of us who live in the sort of, policy data world, there's a temptation to make it more complicated than it is. There's a temptation to be like, look how smart I am. Don't I know everything? I have this, big data set or these big jargony words that explain something. But I think that's actually not bringing anyone to our side. That's like not convincing anybody to actually invest in the issues that I care a lot about. And I think learning how to talk about things in a normal person way has actually been a competitive advantage across my career.
Yes.
Is being able to say like, okay, how do I take something that somebody thinks is complicated and say the quiet part out loud? I think that's been really important to me. I often say that my professional North Star is to make America suck less for poor people.
Oh, wow. That's
Words all intentionally chosen, right? But I think sometimes we get lost in this language of like economic mobility and creating opportunities and underserved communities and, even unhoused people. And language does really matter. I don't want to sort of like gloss that over. But at the end of the day, it sucks to be poor in America. And wouldn't it be great if we could all just say that and work on it together instead of those of us who are in this work, right, making it really complicated and trying to find the exact solution. And I think that sort of simplicity, I think, attracts more attention and sort of gut level investment, right? I think that emotional investment that you hear when you hear somebody talk about what it's like to be poor versus like, oh, I'm
Totally.
trying to create economic mobility. What does that even mean?
What does that mean? I know. Yes, 100%. Yes. I remember when I was at the org that we were just talking about, we were looking to create these tech ecosystems. And I'm going to pause here because we literally could not figure out what we wanted to say next. We
Right.
started with underdog cities, and then it was tertiary cities, and then it was blah, and it was like, what are we trying to say here?
Yep.
And it is that it is in these geographies that are typically, yes, underserved, underrepresented, but also, yes, more often than not well resourced. And so I think that to say these things in a way that allow for us to actually dig at the heart of the issue is so important because, yeah, it's easier to gloss around it with the big words that people are not actually connected to. I think that's another important distinction when you were talking about the young adults that you serve in the organization that you're with. Can you speak a little bit more about like who you look to support in your work?
Yeah. So we only work with young adults, or primarily work with young adults 18 to 29 who don't hold a bachelor's degree, who come from low income families, which those are lots of labels that are sort of deficit based, right? Like, oh, they don't have money or they don't have education. But who we really work with, if we take away the sort of definition of who we serve, is these like incredibly motivated young adults who have not had the same level of opportunity as their rich peers. And we offer them the opportunity to get in front of Fortune 500 companies and get a job. Many of them have been in and out of college. Many of them have, not great experiences with the school system, but they are so motivated, and I know this gets overused in this space, but like gritty, right? As a part of my work, I actually get to coach a cohort of young adults. So even though my day-to-day job is not direct service, I get to stay involved with young people. And we have meetings at 8:30 in the morning on Mondays, and we end at 2 p.m. on Fridays. Those are my two sort of like primary responsibilities. And if you told me that those two time slots would be the time slots that my cup would be fullest, I would like laugh you out of the room. No one likes Monday morning meetings and no one likes Friday afternoon meetings, but the level of kindness and care and dedication to improving themselves and each other is so incredible to watch. I often say it's like I get to be in the passenger seat watching somebody change their life.
Yeah.
And what a gift that is.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, I could talk about them all day. So
I was going to say, so I feel similarly, we talked about that a lot too, a bitwise, when people were asking questions around why would they hire from this cohort of apprentices that had gone through our programs. And a lot of the conversation was around like, this is not, and the fact that people don't actually understand this is a major part of the problem, I think, clearly, which is this is not a lack of talent or intellect or ability or any of the things that would make somebody incredible at this job. It's typically all of these essential services surrounding them that do not allow for that environment to create that space for them to thrive. So whether it's transportation issues, childcare issues, food insecurity, whatever the thing might be. So how do you address some of those, kind of wraparound services to ensure that folks can actually show up and be their best selves? And I think we see that playing out in a number of different ways in different communities across the country. But to your point, what a gift to get to be a part of the system that helps folks actually get to thrive in the ways that they're meant to. I'm curious about so many things. One, when you were just talking about addressing and supporting folks who likely don't have the 4-year degree. And as you see, so much of the conversation around higher education is shifting and evolving and changing, especially with the advent of AI and how fast everything is moving. Do you see this as an opportunity to level the playing field a little bit? Or do you see it as being another thing that's going to widen the gap even further?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like the short answer is I have no
idea.
Effing clue, right? The long answer, whatever, that I can give you is a couple things. One is the playing field has always been deeply not level, right? Higher education does not pay off for every person who goes in the same way. I didn't leave college with any student debt. That is wild. It offered me a number of career opportunities that I wouldn't have been able to take if I was looking at big student loan payments on the other side.
Right.
And if you're a student who's graduating with $50, $100, $200,000 in debt, well, then you take a different kind of job, you look to different kind of opportunities. If you didn't go to a flagship university with a fancy name, your degree isn't worth as much in the marketplace, right? So I think there's something, I'm glad we're having a conversation about what the purpose of higher ed is and how we can start to think about making sure this sort of like equitable promise delivers, right? I think that conversation has been going on for a long time, but we are at this moment of transition. And so I think there are a lot of really smart folks in the higher ed space who are thinking about how do we make that transition go smoothly? What should we be doing? I've been really encouraged to see the community college space, I feel like has been really thinking pretty hard about this. And community colleges and systems like the CSU system create way more economic mobility, there's that word again, than the sort of like fancy liberal arts school that I went to. It's greater access, it's all that. I think in terms of like, AI is going to disrupt everything. I have no smart answers on how that's going to happen, but I am really convinced by the sort of data and narrative that's beginning to emerge around what are the things that only human beings can do. Right?
Yeah.
I think about being able to read a room and convince a group of people to do something. Maybe AI will get so good at that one day, but I think that being able to pick up on like micro emotional moments is very human. I think the problem solving and gut checking and sniffing out, that doesn't feel right? Like AI can't right now say, oh, that doesn't feel right. Or, oh, that piece of information feels wrong for whatever reason. AI just like spits out the information at you. And so I think there is something about how do we use those deeply human skills and then let AI make our lives better in the things that are like very boring and uninteresting, right? Like I'm like, let me have AI for my expenses and let me have that brain power back. And I think that's true. I think that's one of the things that I've observed is many of my young people have experience in some sort of customer service job. And that kind of people navigation, problem solving, conflict resolution, keeping a cool head when somebody is cursing you out, like those are skills that my young people are getting that I think could help them have an advantage in the labor market moving forward. They don't have to sort of like learn that. They've learned them trial by fire. They're not graduating from college and being like, oh, I actually like don't know what to do if this person doesn't agree with me. And I don't know how to navigate
That's happening more and more, from what I understand too.
Right, and if you've never worked on a team with people you don't like, and you graduate college and you're like, oh man, I'm in this space with all these people who don't look like me, who think differently than I do. I think that's a space where people who have experience in these really, really, really tough jobs are going to start to shine. I hope, at least. We can help decide.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. And I couldn't agree more. I think for anybody, my husband and I say this all the time, both of our kids will work in a restaurant or in a service-based capacity. Like that's not going to be a choice. That's their education as far as I'm concerned. I spent years in the restaurant industry and I loved it. I still love it. But it does, I think, shift the way you think about what it means to, number one, be of service in some way and to learn to read the room, to check your ego, all the things. So I love that. I also love this conversation that's happening around community colleges. I'm here in Sacramento, as you know, the Los Rios Community College District and all of the work that's happening in their K-12 partnerships are incredible. And they can be more nimble, right? They are not cemented into this institutional way of being. And so they get to be responsive to workplace partners. So they say, oh, we're going to have a gap in this in the healthcare industry. Okay, great. Well, let's spin up a curriculum and train people into jobs that are actually going to be there not the ones that we thought were going to be there 50 years ago, right? So like, it's pretty amazing, all of the innovative stuff that's happening at that level.
I mean, I also just think it's a moment where you can't rest on your reputation. Your reputation is, especially higher ed institutions, nonprofits, governments, all of that is being upended by what's expected in this new reality, right? And so community colleges have never been able to rest on their reputation in the same way that UC Berkeley or UCLA that degree is going to be valuable and they don't have to change anything about it. But a community college is really thinking very hard. And, there's like policy factors that are changing what they're doing. There's incentives that are changing what they're doing. But they're thinking really hard about how do I actually make this degree as valuable as I possibly can for these young people? And I'm willing to change anything about myself, anything about the way that I am structured to make it work for those young people to serve my core constituency. And that's really cool. It's really cool to watch the colleges meet the moment in a way that some of the 4-years are not right now.
Yeah. Yes. It's exciting. I think it's exciting from just that it doesn't have to be that this is the only way. And of course, that is your entire, premise and mission and what you all are doing.
Yeah.
But
don't get me wrong. I love higher education. I think it is deeply important. Totally. Sometimes I worry, but it's like crazy to have to say that, right? Like, I think there is just this black and white thinking that we all love to engage in. Community college or 4-year or workforce development organization or apprenticeship or this.
Right.
What if they were all good options that got different people with different needs to the job that they want to do?
Can you imagine?
Fulfilling?
What kind of world would that be? I mean, it's like truly though. Yes. I mean, the fact that we have such a hierarchy of value as it relates to career and X is better than Y and anything else, I mean, that's just that's a whole other conversation. But
that's right. We'll come back to that later.
Yes, that'll be part 2. I keep telling every woman I have a conversation with, part 2, because there's no way we're going to get through everything in this short amount of time. So maybe let's rewind all the way back to your early career days. You've worked across policy, philanthropy, private sector, and all in service of this economic inclusion that you've been talking about. But when you started out, where were you when you first jumped into your career?
Yeah, so I graduated into the 2008 recession from college.
Love it.
Yeah. And there's a lot of my friends and I were sort of grateful to have any job. And so it was slim pickings out there, which I think really colors the way that my generation thinks about work. So we can put that aside. But I was I come from a military family. We have a very long service-oriented background. And I was the way I want to serve my country is through AmeriCorps. I did 2 years of AmeriCorps with City Year, first in Boston and then in Sacramento. And, it is the hardest job I have ever had in my life. I had to leave my house at 5:50 to be on the bus at 5:55, to be at school by 6:40, and then do it all in reverse 12 hours later, working with young people in middle school, the lowest performing middle school in Boston at the time. And I think what was so useful about it for me was I had learned a lot about inequality in books, through volunteer work, and I hadn't lived it every day. Day in and day out, watching students struggle to get to school on time, to fight with the transportation system, to learn English, to operate in a system that was deeply failing them, I think really is the foundation of both who I am as a person and who I have become as a professional. Because when you get up close to how deeply unequal this country is, it's hard to look away. Especially, I took the bus across Boston through very high income and very low income neighborhoods. And that inequality just really, really struck a heartstring for me that I can't let go of. And I mean, I also was living on $12,000, and the way AmeriCorps is structured, I was eligible for SNAP. So I was dealing with the bureaucracy of the public policies of this country. And I was wow, I am seeing all of these things up close and watching how badly they fail people over and over and over again. And then, I think one of the things that was important to me then and is important to me now is I want to be in this work forever. So did a lot of thinking during that period of my life of like, okay, how do I make this sustainable for the rest of my life? How do I make sure that I am taking care of myself so that I can do this work for many decades and not get burnt out after like 3 or 4 years, which is really common. I think it's a big problem in the nonprofit sector, but I remain really committed to figuring out how to not to do that.
That is so interesting. I don't know that I've heard from many who had that spark at such a young age where it was like, I clearly have a vision for where I want to be and how I want to make an impact. And maybe you didn't know exactly how that was going to look, but to know that that is how you wanted to dedicate your time and your career. A lot of times it takes people many meandering squigs and swags and zigs and zags, myself included. And neither is right or wrong, but it's really compelling to hear from someone that had such a pivotal moment happen at such a young age. And I think, especially as you were just talking about what you need to do at a very, very young age to understand that you know that you need to take care of yourself while taking care of others. And so what does that look like for you when you think about what you need to do for yourself in order to show up fully? Do you have like very specific ways of thinking about that?
Yeah, it's funny. Even back then, I mean, I have unfortunately been like this my whole life. I knew I was going to do mission-driven work. I was very involved with this organization that worked with homeless young people in high school. And, actually, I think one of the things that City Year really did for me was it taught me a lot about my own position in the world around race and privilege and who I was. And it helped me really get clear on my values, which I think is actually how I got to the taking care of myself part. I think it was very clarifying for okay, if this is really the kind of work I want to do, if this is who I want to be, how do I have a relationship to work that feels healthy enough? And obviously there have been times when I've been better and worse at it, but
of course, yeah.
But even then I remember we would get out, we'd be done with school and the kids would have all gone home by 5:30. And there was a big cohort of people who would go back to the office at 5:30 p.m. and keep working on stuff and come home at 9 or 10. And even at 22, I was like, oh no, I am going home. I'm going to the gym. I'm going to cook a dinner and then I'm going to bed and I'm going to do it all over again. And because I think for me, there's being able to have Maslow's hierarchy, right? To have my basic needs met meant that I was much better at the things that I was doing day to day. If I got good sleep and I was well nourished, it meant that I didn't constantly feel like I was fraying the ends of my rope in really emotionally difficult work. And so still to this day, many of the principles are the same. I'm pretty careful about closing my laptop at a certain time. I have several yoga classes that I go to every week, do or die. I never work on the weekends. I try to be really intentional when I have to travel for work, right? I try to make times to, we're just talking about this, go on walks and work out, move my body. That's been really helpful for me. Be around my family and friends. All of that, I think, has made this kind of work really more sustainable for me than lots of people find it. I think it's tough though. The fighting against it is there's always more to do. I wish I could be doing more all the time. What is enough is a question that I ask myself a lot. But I can't boil the ocean. And so I've been trying to be really intentional about how do I spend time, which is, in my opinion, the most precious resource that we all have on this earth, so that I can really give my best self to my job and to the people around me and to my friends and family. I want to be the best version of myself. I think it also helps, frankly, I'm an introvert by nature. And so I have to have that recharge time, which I think folks who are a little more extroverted don't feel that pull to read a book for 2 hours or go on a walk by themselves. And I really do. And I think that's actually that sort of like innate sense of needing alone time has helped me build the practices that keep me sane.
I love that. I feel like, yeah, I was just, and as you were saying that, I'm like, but why is this so hard? Like, why is it so hard? Because even
So
those of
hard.
us that are aware of it or, know the things we maybe should is not the right word, but could be doing to take care of ourselves. Like, I know what the answers are. I know what they are, but like everything, I have to actively choose that.
Yeah.
It's not the natural response. My natural response would be like, there's like 75,000 other things doing like that. And especially if you're in mission driven work, it's so tricky because everybody wants to continue. Everybody cares deeply about pushing the mission forward or pushing the vision forward. And so it is very easy to fall into a trap of wanting to be on all the time and wanting to push all the time. I found myself in that, if I'm totally honest, back when we were first engaged with each other. And I think looking back on it now, hindsight's always a bitch, right? I'm like, oh, I could have done X, Y, and Z. And I have since evolved quite a bit in that way. But I do think there's almost something there when we think about when we're bringing people into the nonprofit or mission driven space. I almost wish there was like a training for people. Like, hey, this is the long game, right? This is the full marathon, not the sprint. You have to take care of yourself. And this is true in any sector, of course. But I do think, mission driven work in particular brings a certain kind of person to the table.
Yeah, I think it's also just like we're all fighting against the construct of capitalism. Which
yes. Also that.
We don't live in a society with the structures that actually support people to thrive in their life, right?
Yeah.
Not enough workers in this country have sick leave, much less anything else, right? And that's because we've created systems where it's okay for that to not be true. And so there's something, it's funny because when I talk about how seriously I feel about work-life integration or balance or whatever true money is, I almost get this reaction of like, oh, it's so radical that you ask, that you're this way. And I'm like, I'm not that radical. I'm like radical in some ways. And it just doesn't feel that radical to me to say we should all be able to take care of ourselves and take care of the people that we love. And work shouldn't be able to get in the way of that. And I still want to be really effing good at my job. And the way to do that for me is by being able to take care of the people I love and myself. But we do live in a country and we've set up policies and systems that mean that is a wild thing for me to say. And it almost, it feels insane to say this, but it's like a luxury that I get to have that perspective, right?
100%. Yeah.
Which what? Like, what are we doing here, guys?
It's a kind of a good segue into something I was thinking about for you, which is you've been a part of these like major systems change efforts, like rethinking hiring across multiple states. And number one, I'm interested in like what it takes to create that level of change. But I think my second question to that is, how do you stay grounded when you know that these efforts, this is not for the lack of patience, people. Like, this is like long, hard, arduous, constantly beating the drum. This is not something that happens overnight. How do you kind of center yourself in this awareness that what you're doing, you're not going to see the quote unquote payoff for probably a long time?
Yeah, if ever.
Yeah.
If ever. It sort of comes back to what we were talking about earlier with communication. I've worked for 2 bosses now who've both been part of their own, who've really been like tip of the spear leaders. So Luke Schaefer, who is now leading poverty solutions at the University of Michigan, he wrote $2 a day, living on almost nothing in America, which found that 1.5 million families with children live under $2 a day in this country. And Byron Geist, leader of Opportunity at Work, who leads the work around 70 million Americans who are STARS workers who are skilled or alternative routes. And I phrase both of those that way intentionally because those two data points can just come out of my mouth because I have heard both of those leaders say them over and over and over again. And I think that is part of what has been really important for me in staying grounded is every person you talk to is at a different point on their learning journey about the problem that you're trying to solve. And being able to really bring people in and help them understand the problem in a way that's going to resonate with them, to me, is how we build a bigger tent. And I think we need a much bigger tent for both like alleviating poverty and solving the deep crisis we have around skills in the labor market. And so being able to just use, it's almost like every conversation is the opportunity to start anew, to educate somebody about the things that you care most about, and to not presume people are busy, they have lives. Not everyone can do this for their everyday work, right? But if you can move one person, one hiring manager at a time, that's what it's going to take. And helping people understand the sort of like level of inequality in this country. We are so segregated on every measure of that you can measure, by race, by income, by class, by geography, by politics. And so there's something to getting to open people's minds that I think is really cool. You have to enjoy individual relationship building and, you know, being able to be a little more persuasive in every conversation to do this kind of work, because at the end of the day, am I going to solve poverty and end the skills-based workforce crisis in my lifetime? Definitely not. I'm not going to create an equal opportunity for every person, but one by one is really important to me. And I think the other thing is, like, I have just been surrounded by great people. And if you're working on a hard problem with great people, it doesn't feel so terrible, right?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
It doesn't feel like soul crushing in the way that trying to do it alone could. And that's
100%. Oh my goodness. Shout out to Michelle and Chan. These are my two just dearest, still two of my dearest friends from our time together at Bitwise. And when you're working, we talked about that all the time. When you're working on these hard, difficult, seemingly unchangeable issues, you better want to be in the trenches with those people, because if not, like, get out my foxhole. This is not fun. Like, yeah, I need to have people that I want to dig. And that was, for me, still is, I think, even as I'm building my own business, what I miss the most. Like, of course, yes, digging in on these huge issues and gnarly problems that we all want to make better for people, but it's that being alongside somebody and just figuring it out. That is what a joy, and how incredible to get to, like, the years that you'll get to look back on this time with these people and what you all did together. There's real magic in that. And I think that allows also for different perspectives to come in. Like, there's so much about working alongside people that you care about in these spaces that is, I think, just a giant gift. And I think it's something we were talking about a moment ago before we jumped in. We both were talking about outside of work, how important the relationships are that you have, and in choosing a partner and in choosing who you surround yourself with. These make big differences. Obviously, we know these things, but I think sometimes until you're living it, you don't actually know what it's going to look like, right? And you were talking about just how incredibly supportive and wonderful your partner is. That's, I think, when you choose the person that creates that space for you to be in this work, and you do the same for them, that's another, like, what a giant, beautiful gift that is as well.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think about, well, first of all, so Call Your Girlfriend, which is a now defunct sort of feminist podcast.
Yeah, I remember.
Yes. Had this theory, shine theory. I don't shine if you don't shine. And that, like, that to me is the most important vetting criteria in a colleague, in a friend that I can find. Like, I think there is enough room for all of us at the table, and believing that everybody should get to be their best self, and, like, really pushing to make your friends and your colleagues look good. That is sure, I don't want to look bad. But what I care a lot more about is other people looking good. I want everyone to get to be their best selves, which sounds really corny when I say it out loud. But
No.
but I think that's what makes it easier to stay in this work. And I think having a supportive partner who, when we started dating at 21, that was not a thing I was vetting for. But now just having that in my life, I'm like, oh, this is a person I spend a lot of time with, who I ultimately make a lot of important decisions with. And it's a gift that we're aligned on our values and how we want to approach life and our careers. And I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out my two best friends, who we often call each other, text each other a question and then respond and say, thanks, bras. You're always holding me up. Which,
Oh my God, that's so cute.
Yeah. And that's, to me, my job, especially for my female friends, is how do we hold each other up when times are hard, when you really need that unconditional support? There's other people in your life to give you the critical feedback. But if you can't really support the people closest to you, you've got to show up for them. And you can't show up for other people if you're not showing up for yourself.
Yes.
So it comes all back to this, how do you take care of yourself? And when we moved to the Bay Area after COVID, I was really intent on building deeper community here. I had moved around a lot, and it's funny that we're talking today because I throw a huge Friendsgiving every year, and it has become, people start asking me in August. They're like, have you picked a date? What's the plan? And I think there's something about, we're not, it's very trendy right now to talk about community and how are we thinking about community and all that. But I really do think we deprioritized it at some point. Yeah. And all of that is the critical underpinnings of a happy life, for which, a career is a big piece, a partner is a big piece, and the people you surround yourself with, family or otherwise, is a huge piece. So.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It's interesting too, I think, as we get older, your idea of connection starts to deepen or shift, or you think about, sure, yes, what does community mean to me? Does it mean, I for a long time struggled when we moved back to Sacramento because all of our family is here, which is such a huge, amazing gift. But that meant that my husband has 3 brothers, they're his best friends, they're my best friends. So our community really was our family. And so we hadn't really invested a lot in making friends. And so for a while there, because I had moved back from the Bay and I had friends, my dearest friend is in Fresno, one's in Oakland, some are on the East Coast. And I had to really kind of reframe what I thought I meant by community. In my head, it was friends, living in the apartments next to each other, and it has to be local. And I'm like, well, who says, right? It doesn't have to be that. And I'm I don't feel lonely. I feel like I have incredible humans in my life. Just the visual of it might have had to change a little bit. And now we've been incredibly lucky because our kids are in school and sports, and we're now surrounded by phenomenal humans. But it can shift over time. It doesn't always sound or look or, feel the way you think it might have when you were younger. But to be present enough and aware enough of it, I think, is part of the trick. I want to be really mindful of your time because I know we're close here, but I cannot let you leave without asking the question I ask everyone, which is, in the work that I do with women, it's this kind of bridge of how you yourself are developing internally as you're building the strategy for what you're doing externally. And in thinking about that, so much of that really is in service of building whatever legacy you're building. And I think we tend to talk about legacy as this big giant, thing after we die. I like to frame it as, no, it's what we're doing today. It's what we're building in real time. It's the impact we want to have. It's how we want to be remembered. So I ask everyone, what does building a legacy mean to you?
So it's funny. I had a coach ask me this maybe 5 years ago.
Tell me, who is this coach? I need to find this person.
She's wonderful. Shout out Pat Zach. It was actually in this larger meditation program that she runs. And she did this visualization of, okay, when you're 80, what do you want people to be saying about you? And my answer then and my answer now is around being generous. I want to be generous with my time and with my money and with my attention and with just the way I approach people and how I talk about people and how I work with people. And, there's something to me about, I'm, as you can tell, very other oriented, and having that kind of approach to the world, I think has, to your point, like on a day-to-day basis, hopefully means that that's the legacy I leave. And if I get to make change on these big hard problems, fine, that's great. Like that's ultimately what I want to do. But I don't want to do that at the expense of how I make people feel, right? The ends to me don't always justify the means. And so how do I make sure that I'm making time for the early career conversations and giving money to the causes that I care about and moving a deadline for somebody because we don't do brain surgery on babies. I really try to bring that, infuse that approach as generosity into everything that I do. And your legacy is built by how people remember you, right? And so that's my hope. We'll see.
Well, I mean, I would just be first to say, yes, that is how you show up. It is the feeling I get. It's the first feeling I got. I don't know if I would have said that word, but now that I know you, yes. When we were first connected, you just know those people when you meet them, that they are thinking about the world differently, and you are totally engaged and alive and aware. And yes, in service, but also, to your point, generous with yourself, because you're allowing yourself to give yourself that space and to be doing the work that you care about. And that's just as important as being generous with others. So you're amazing. And I appreciate you so much. I know you're a busy woman, so thank you for coming and spending some time with me. I think there's so much, I was like, I want her to talk about City Year, because not everybody knows what that is. And there's so many incredible things you talked about. So I'll probably link out to them so folks can look it up if they're interested, but probably a part 2 at some point for sure.
Always. I feel like, I don't know if anyone said this to you, but at some point it would be great to get all of the women who are in these conversations with you together.
Yes, this is literally, my bestie, the one in Oakland. I interviewed her a few times ago, and she said it for the first time out loud on the show. And it is in the works. I am trying to figure out how to make that happen because, it's just too many incredible people. She literally was like, how do I not know that person?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I felt watching these videos. I'm like, I want to know her. How do I get to know her?
Yes, that is real. So yes, on it. 2026, here we come.
Also just a testament to the kind of people you surround yourself with and what you're trying to do here. That literally everyone, it's like, gosh, she's so cool. She's so smart. She's so you're bringing out these insights in folks. So I'll give you your flowers too.
Thank you.
It's a joy to talk about this stuff.
Appreciate you so much.
You too.
All right, my friend.
Thanks,
I'll see you
Kristen.
soon. Bye.